Welcome to the Emerging New World. This is Lee Patrick Hanks.
And Amara.
And we are here to present webinar number 4, which is all about the heart. And we have been leading up to this in the previous 3 series. And so today we're going to cover a lot of different areas having to do with the heart. And we're doing this here from Mount Shasta, California. We have just recently come off a 4-week journey around Asheville, North Carolina, to Hendersonville, down to Florida, over to Sanibel Island. And we had quite an extraordinary experience meeting so many different people. And we're going to talk about what we're seeing and feeling with these people today and how they're reacting to what's going on with everything. So what we wanted to do in the beginning with this series, The Gateway to the Universal Awakening 2012, is to get into the heart. So opening of the heart, we also had an eclipse here that just took place here May the 20th, which was Sunday. And I mentioned this on an update I just will have posted up on our website as well. It really seemed to have triggered people in the heart. And we experienced that at the park, didn't we?
We did. You know, all of the topics in our 12-part series we feel are timely for this year, 2012, but none of them are quite as timely as the heart. This is why we're devoting 3 of the 12 parts to the heart. What we're beginning to see everywhere that we go, with everyone that we happen to be blessed to speak with or speak to, is that the heart is stepping into the foreground. The experience of mentally understanding techniques or explanations about things seems to be falling away, and everyone is curious with this gentle, loving curiosity about this aspect, this true aspect of themselves that we call heart.
So why don't we get into a little bit of the, I guess you could say, the components of how and what the heart represents, what we've heard about it in every love song that's ever been written, certainly artistic expression, the cosmology and the representation of the heart. All of these things, which a lot of it's been identified. We've seen tremendous amount of information on the internet over the last many years. But we're coming to a time where I explained this in one of the workshops down in Florida recently, is that we are literally moving from what we call this 3rd dimensional resonant frequency field and now into the 4th field, and which is what the Hopis and Mayans and ancient systems of knowledge said we would be walking between worlds or dimensions. And as we're moving into this eclipse energy, which just happened on Sunday, I believe it's another earmark. It's another nexus point, which started on the 11/11 of last year, and where we are literally now in our resonant field of the heart, which is permeating the entire planet. That's huge. So let's delve into that. And what is that? How does that being expressed outward, or what might people be feeling, or what are you feeling?
We use this word, the heart, not to describe the organ in the body that pumps blood. We use this word heart in the same way we would use the word awareness or truth. So what is really coming to the foreground is that this deeper awareness or truth, which we experience through what we call heart, is a human experience. Heart is really beginning to wash over everything. When we were at the eclipse celebration in our little part of the world, we saw such incredible joy, and it was like a peaceful joy, especially as the eclipse was physically occurring. People began to resonate with something new. So this thing, which is really not a thing, that we call heart, is happening on every level. In the human body, it's experienced primarily through the feeling sense. Heart has been kind of minimized historically as something romantic or even emotional. But heart, as we're referencing it now, is so much vaster, so much more beautiful and all-encompassing. And this unifying, all-encompassing aspect is what is beginning to show up in pretty much everyone's life.
Well, we did experience this at the park. There was almost 2,000 people there, which we were very surprised at. And what we noticed and what I was feeling in my body and my energy field was that as the eclipse was getting closer to its finale, there was a softening of the crowd, and there was love songs being played by the band. And everyone started coming together and dancing. There wasn't an overzealous or joyous expression. It was more soft and unifying. And truly, for myself personally, I felt like there was what I hear so much with people talking about oneness. I really felt this collective oneness that we were all experiencing, not only there, but I'm sure people all over the world were going through. And especially where the eclipse was traveling through different areas of this part of the country and across the ocean over to Asia. It's expressing itself, what we would say, macro and micro. So it's happening to the cosmology, it's happening to consciousness. And so one of the things that we also addressed at quite a bit in our workshops, in our travels, was how the heart and the components of the heart, or what the expression of the heart is affecting us in now that we're in this four-dimensional field. So having you to address this, how I've been explaining this to people and clients especially is that if you're working from the lower chakras, or if there are issues that have been coming up for you, third chakra, second chakra, first chakra, survival issues, issues of overpowering energies in the third chakra, misuse of power, loss of power, job, money. These are all triggering us to give us a chance to move into this area, because this is where the world and resonant frequency is now residing, whether we are aware of it or not. So how could we best describe to those that are listening some of the easiest or the most helpful ways to really recognize how we can operate from here?
I believe that the little story we just told about the afternoon eclipse, where Lee was describing it as a softening, I think that's really a key word. We've lived in this world of duality, which has been, if you want to address the chakra system, it's been, the lower three chakras for so long, for many, 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 many lifetimes. But we're coming to a time when all of that conflict and harshness is no longer working. And so there's a softening. There's a softening in the voice. There's a softening in the way we deal with our day-to-day life. There's a softening in the way we intellectually sort of wrap ourselves around things, because the heart, even though it's quite distinct from the mind and a mental perception of the world, encompasses everything. So it encompasses the mind. So even the way we're dealing with beliefs and concepts, which are something that all of us are beginning to examine more closely, there's a softening to it. There's not this I don't believe that and I'm right and you're wrong. There's, well, let me just sort of take that in and try to sort of see how that fits with my beliefs and concepts. This is not the ultimate place that human consciousness is going, but this is the transitional point that is heart-flavored that we see happening very much right now.
We're seeing it with people we're doing our private sessions with, as examples where those that have been really doing their spiritual work, their internal work, that they are starting to feel more opening, more space, as you would say, more expansiveness. If we are operating from the heart, and I've used this reference in the past with the HeartMath Institute, where they've been able to measure and see how frequencies in the heart can expand if there's this connection with joy, with laughter, with openness, with adaptability, the cycles of the heart move at a higher frequency, and there's more of an expansion, which increases technically more activity up into the brain and increases the telomeres, which are the joy factors that increase the space and opening. We can get into a lot of these things. We're not going to, but there's a dynamic that is happening here now that we're literally residing in this area of what we call the physical body. And this is, to me, what I've discussed and actually mentioned in past videos and workshops. This is like our steering wheel. If our car is our body, this is the steering wheel. And if you can't steer it with intentions of what it is that you're holding to, it could get off track, or it could get, broken down, or if it's not paying attention. I'm using this as a metaphor, but maybe you could talk a little bit about that as far as the heart and how we can hold and be in the heart.
A simple way to begin to really understand what and who you are is to look at the heart as one aspect of yourself, and the mind or mental apparatus as another aspect. And if you divide those two, which is a true expression in this duality, you'll begin to easily see that the heart is the only place that has the feeling sense. It has the warmth. The mental concept is very dry, cold. It really doesn't have the life essence. It's a mechanical aspect of us. So what appears to be happening, and it's a great joyous event, is that the mind, which has been in the forefront for so long, and the heart, which is gentle and quiet and has been waiting in the background, accepting everything that's come on the screen, there is a kind of shift where the heart is moving into the forefront and the mind is actually willingly, there's not a forced event, but it's willingly moving more into the background to be in service to the heart. This is putting things in a more true and organic balance. Things have been quite out of balance for so long in human consciousness. We feel that this is such an important shift that the retreats that we're holding in Shasta, both in July and now we're going to have a second one in September, will be focusing very much on this shift. This is the heart, if you'll allow me this pun, of the shift in consciousness which is happening.
A lot of the work that I have presented and certainly exemplified over the years had to do with how we got into this whole aspect of how the mind was mainly running the matrix, or was the controlling epicenter of consciousness on this planet. We know from our galactic history, which I've talked about, which you can refer to in other videos. But I do want to bring this up here because I think it's very relevant for people to understand that information that we have all been acquiring and accruing over the many years, seeing who the players are, what the conditions of the planet were, how this all played out all the way back to Atlantis or even back to Lemuria. We're now coming to a time where, interestingly enough, we just finished an interview with Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, which we'll have available soon. And we did discuss this in depth about how the importance of information is becoming less of value as opposed to how we can prepare for these shifts and changes and really connecting to our true selves, our higher selves. And Carrie really did a nice job of talking about this. And I know that that's certainly in resonance with what we're talking about here. So maybe you could address that as well.
As long as we're fully embodied in this magnificent life dream, functioning and feeling and being directed and guided by what we're calling heart is the true way to feel fully alive, fully connected to everyone and everything. It's the truth of this experience. this beautiful experience on this planet, in this galaxy. I mean, it just however you want to speak about it, to be enlivened through the only thing that's truly alive, which is what we call heart.
Now, heart is it's multidimensional in its flavor as well, from my understanding and training. So we're seeing these shifts and changes taking place. We're watching systems that we know of that have been held through the mind controlling aspects, politics, religions, the Wall Street. We could go on to all these different facets that have been sort of running the mind matrix of the planet that are now being forced to, and will be very much so in the near future, if not next weeks and months, having to adapt to a new way of adjusting into this heart frequency, which is more towards the nurturing, support, and caring of the collective instead of the individual or the few. And that's why you're going to see a lot of changes in our physical world as we know it, in what we saw and watched in the Matrix energy. And now we're moving to this dynamic of what we call the heart, which means more about nurturing, supporting, adaptability, as we mentioned, which can be a lower chakra thing on some levels. But we're talking about adaptability to not only the physical reality, but also the emotions, the feelings, and the true nature of our divine selves, or our higher self or spirit. So how do we recognize when that feeling is the authentic heart as opposed to the mind?
The heart has an innate kindness to it. It is completely devoid of the word no. The heart is a description of the non-dual experience of welcoming with open arms, gentle open arms, not grabbing open arms, gentle open arms, everything. So when you feel yourself functioning just automatically, just organically from this open, kind, sometimes gentle, sometimes passionate space of, whether it's taking in a new point of view, whether it's preparing food in a different way, enjoying your friends or your family from a deeper place. We could go on and on with examples that are actually heart-centered, heart-guided, heart-infused expressions of yourself, of life. It's very important to begin to differentiate between something that is in some way connected to what I'm attempting to point to, because these everything that we're saying here is in some way just a pointing. It's not to be taken literally. There's such diversity, especially with the subject, the heart. It's big.
It's big.
It's huge.
It's big.
But hopefully you're getting, a taste of what the heart is. And of course, the taste of your own beautiful heart. But to distinguish between that moment to moment in your life and the very practical, the very clear, the very precise, the very, reasonable way that the mind operates. It's judgmental. It doesn't include everything. I mean, we could go on. I think we all are pretty darn familiar with the way the thought process, what we call the mind, operates. These distinctions, simply by seeing them, are important. There will be a natural preference leaning to this kinder, heart-centered way of being. It will happen organically.
I have clients that are males that have a real challenge with this, and I've experienced this over the years with men that have asked me this question numerous times. Well, if I just operate from that reality, I won't be able to survive in my world of finance or my job or out there in the jungle, and I'll be eaten alive. And one of the things that we've discussed over the last several months in our personal reality is agendas typically are not necessarily what the heart would want to experience in its presence or its everyday life. The mind typically has the agendas. The mind has the strategies. The mind has all these things that we just mentioned about being in the jungle. You've got to survive, right? So it's usually power over others, or it's that I have to be more superior, I have to get more information, I have to be more intelligent. And that's really, a lot of that has to do with third chakra energy. So again, I would like to go back to another kind of a question, or put this back to you, is we have those that are what we call devotional, heart-centered people, as opposed to those that are wanting to navigate from what we call the mind and the heart. So maybe you could give us a little distinction between those two areas.
It's so great that you brought this up, Lee, because I was working with a man relatively recently, and we were really getting to this place. His heart was opening. He was so happy to be able to feel, and then all of a sudden, he said, "But I have horses." and he said, "Who'll take care of the horses if I live from here?" And it was so sweet and really classic, because the love that he had for his horses jumped in the front, and the mind said, better not do this, because who'll take care of your horses? And so, we talked a little bit longer, and he went home after the session, and he emailed me the next day and said, "Amara, I was coming fully from the heart, and the strangest thing happened. This whole list of tasks that I've been putting off for weeks, all of a sudden I got out of my chair and started doing them effortlessly. There was no stress. So much got done, I could hardly believe it. And my horses got completely taken care of. And I didn't strategize a thing. I didn't force a thing. It was all done from this place." And it was so beautiful, because immediately as that question arose in him, but he stayed with this heart-centered expression of life moving through him, more got done, more efficiently, more joyously. And this is the trick. The mind has been holding us at bay, saying, if you let go of me, if you don't strategize and you don't think everything through and blah, 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 then it just won't be good. I can tell you that as we prepare for these webinars, Lee writes down some points that we want to cover. He reads them to me maybe once. I go, "Okay, honey." And then we just sit in front of the camera and we let it all come from the heart. It is completely wonderful, because in the beginning, I may be having a day where I'm saying, "Oh God, I really don't feel like doing this." And by the time we sit here, the heart just takes over and we have so much fun.
Well, and we did this for 4 weeks in our travels, because This is the first time we've traveled together day and night, multiple cities, multiple venues, interviews, workshops, big audiences, small audiences, and then going and having to go to the next event, or working with people privately along the way that wanted us to at least get a session before we went back. And what happens if you're truly living from this space? First of all, there's no time. Time disappears. Time is no longer an element. And so there's no strategizing about what has to be done here and there. Yes, you stay responsible if you've made a commitment, obviously, and you follow that, but it becomes more easeful. The other thing we noticed, and I noticed for sure, was that there's a flow. There's a flow that starts to happen, and you become perfectly in tune with whatever needs to be done. Or if we're late, it's perfect, because the other people weren't ready for us, or the cameras weren't ready for us, or the people didn't have the audience prepared. It didn't matter what it was. It was perfect. It was like we were in the flow. And this is what we're talking about, living in this fourth dimensional heart field now. So letting go of agendas, letting go of time, letting go of the mind, and allowing the navigation to come from here is truly, for my reality, the greatest experience and the most joyful time I've ever experienced for me on this earth, in this right now. And there is an outness to it, isn't there?
It's absolutely right now. And the mind, your mental mechanism, it can't help but join in. It really won't fight after you go through an initial transition of allowing this feeling center, this gentle aspect of you, a true aspect of you, to move forward. And then the mind goes just like an adorable puppy dog. It goes, okay, sure, how can we help? And that's about it.
And it gets more efficient, because what it starts doing is that it starts working with you. Instead of it being a separate aspect of self, it becomes more congruent. So the clarity through the heart allows you to make decisions, or if you have to decide on things, it seems to be more efficient. It comes faster, and the results are much higher in the reality. I notice that's happening, well, for us every day with our work and what we're doing. But I hear this over and over from people. So that leads me to another aspect of what I think we may be able to help those that are listening. Emotions and thoughts having to do with either the past or the future, because this is where we see a lot of people getting tricked up with the mind, the programs, the loops that are running through every day. You're busy, busy, busy. And very few people have the ability to drop down then right into the heart. How can we address that? How would you like to talk about that?
You know, I'm very lucky because I live with this man. And when I fall into projecting into the future or remembering in the past, all of a sudden, generally speaking, something very serious happens. And I get very serious.
She's heavy Capricorn.
And
my planet is a Capricorn.
when I get very serious, my face changes, my body language changes, and Lee notices, and he will say something. It doesn't even matter what it is, but it'll bring me right back here, and I just start laughing, and we both start laughing. So this is what happens in my life when I move out of the present moment into some imaginary future or some memory of a past, which we all know is just a story. And the mind is very happy, and all of a sudden there's something serious going on. What I can just suggest to anyone who might be listening is take notice if things start to feel serious. And of course we know that serious seeming events happen all the time. My sister just had a quite serious operation yesterday. She's fine, and she called me just so happy to be able to, be alive and talk to her sister. So it's not to belittle things like this. But when the energetic of seriousness begins to take over, it's a total red flag that the mind is in the foreground. The heart has gently, quietly moved into the background, and this is the source of suffering. This we all know very well. When you realize that has happened, already the shift has taken place and the heart is back in the foreground. Seeing it is all that needs to take place. If you can laugh about it, great. If not, you just gently realize, oh, I got serious. Wow, I must have been, really up here. That's enough. It's very simple. The light of your consciousness is all that's required. Just shine your light, see it. That's it. The shift will take place again.
Men, probably more than women, I'll just speak from my reality. When we get into mind, we want to fix things. and we want to sort it out, and we gotta figure it out. I'm really getting much better at that. And I hope that that's showing up in our life. And I do try to really practice being in the present as much as I can with what's coming up in the moment. Sure, we have to make plans and arrangements for the things that we do. But what happens is, as you become more attuned to being here, and, and I'm saying it from my reality, life becomes more easeful, becomes more graceful. And what we thought was so serious or important or specifically had to be completed or finished at a certain moment, that all seems to start evening out. The relevance isn't as serious or as stressful. And then there is this flow that starts to take place, which we were talking about when we were on our travels. As you move through and flow through what we call this fourth-dimensional energy field now that's permeating the planet, and we're moving very, very quickly towards a fifth dimension. So we're going to take another shift here. So we've got some time to get used to living in the heart now and being here, which I believe is about 6 or 7 months before we get the next big wave, which will be December 21st. So now is the time to let go of these constructs, the programs, the beliefs, the doings or the not doings that you're supposed to have done or that you haven't taken care of, or that you're attached to certain material reality that really doesn't have all that much importance to you, but you've been programmed to believe that's the way you're supposed to react and be in the world. All of these areas that you're watching and triggering, and that's coming towards you, this is a time to practice to let go and to just, if nothing else, be aware it's even coming up.
In the first 3 webinars, we focused quite a bit on the emotional aspect that has been held in the body of so many of us. I dare say probably all of us, and how important it was to address the releasing of these stored emotions. The reason that we focused on that on the first 3 webinars is that with the emotional releasing, the heart has so much more space to open up and really shine its natural light, which is everything we've been talking about, this ease, this flow, this grace, synchronicities happening all the time, people you don't know coming up and just being so happy that you're actually there. We had situations like this happening on the road. It was wild and beautiful. It was really feeling like there is a family on this planet, and they're beginning to recognize, their brothers and sisters everywhere. But these emotions, which are an aspect of the heart, because the heart holds everything, these emotions for so many of us are coming up now in just these giant bubbles. So as this expansiveness, this unification of the heart with everything, its recognition of the non-dual aspect of this life dream, these emotions are very important to embrace and to feel. They are, it's like the gauntlet that we walk through, and then we open to this beautiful garden that we call heart.
That's allowed me to remember something else. When we were traveling, we had some people asking us questions, strangers, down in South Florida. Women asking us, what do you think about something, and turning into almost a session and with these 2 strangers in 15 minutes. And it was fascinating because I believe that humanity is all of a sudden interested in something different than what they believe they were supposed to have been living in, which is the mind matrix, is that you've got to do it a certain way. What is so encouraging to us and what we're seeing and feeling ourselves is that there is something happening, whether people are aware of it or not. There is this inner wanting to feel and let go of the past, to let go of the suffering, to let go of the constraints that have held us in this third dimensional aspect, or the power chakra. And the earth and our planet and the cosmos is giving us this tremendous opportunity to step into something now fully for the first time since, I go back to Atlantis and before. So we're beginning, this is a gift. This is truly a gift.
It's a huge gift. Just today, I was working with someone on the phone, and she's been doing some beautiful heart-opening work. And she said, Amara, I want you to know that my son, and in her case, her son had been very troubled. And even though, the family had stayed together through many difficult times, no one ever knew if this troubled aspect to her son would lift or if that would just be the way it would always be. She said, something has happened since I've been doing this work, and it's like a miracle. My son is completely changed and transformed. This is the amazing power of having the heart in the forefront as opposed to the mind. Like any loving mother, for many, many years, she and her husband had tried to figure out a way to help their son, and it just didn't work. Then they dove inside, began to do their work. Their hearts began to be freed up to express the beauty and the truth that is innate in every heart, and it washed over to their son. And his heart opened. He apologized for being such a troublesome son. And he said, I feel that I can actually be happy now for the first time in my life and be a better son and a better father. I mean, it was a miracle.
This time is giving us an opportunity also to have discernment. And again, this goes back to not just being love and light in your heart, giving away everything you have, who you have. It's also discerning to know when one's heart is saying, I don't want to really engage in that behavior or that activity, or I'm not going to allow you to hook me into your drama or trauma anymore. That's really having high discernment as well. So there is a discernment part of being in the heart too, yes?
This is great. Actually, like in the little story that I just shared, as opposed to helping others, in this case, this woman started helping herself, loving herself, working with her own heart. This is so important. Whatever opens you to this gentle, knowing aspect that we call heart is going to wash over and help everyone else. So there is a discernment. If you're in a situation and it appears on the surface that, well, this would be good for me, but I don't know if it would be good for them, and I really want to think about them first, or it doesn't really feel right to do this, but I don't want to hurt their feelings, or however it plays, always put first what works for you that resonates through the heart. And this is very different than, well, this works for my bank account better than this or that, or this works for my, business opportunities better than this and that. That is most probably coming from the mind. When it's a feeling sense, then the guidance is most probably coming from the heart. It's a discernment that is very intimate. So it has to come through you, through your intimacy with the situation, just to sort of drop into the situation. And through that, you will begin to get or to know more strongly, if this is not a new facet for you, really what the heart wants here. It may be very different than what the program of you as a person would have wanted a year ago. But as the heart moves into the foreground, it becomes the guiding force. It's really shifts from what do I want to what does the heart want. And this is quite beautiful and quite important right now.
Which leads us into falling in love with oneself.
Yeah.
And falling in love to a level of the word itself, which we had a very interesting discussion with Carrie Cassidy about love, which we'll show you as well in the coming video and interview. But as many of the great poets and great mystics have always said, that in order to be able to move into what we call the higher expansions of consciousness, or the higher awareness of what life or beyond is, one must be totally attuned to one's own heart. So one must be totally attuned to what the heart is asking for, not what the mind is telling it or what the lower chakras are afraid of and is forcing the heart to be overridden. This time that we're going to be seeing coming up in these weeks and months ahead, we're going to see third chakra activations and triggerings on this planet with power system structures, things you mentioned earlier, that are going to change, reconfigure, or even collapse. So the heart is going to have to be your carrier, your guidance, and this is the most perfect time to really attune into that, what we call falling in love, which goes to what I would say 0 point. I love to use that term. It's a neutrality. It doesn't mean you're not feeling or feeling, but whatever is happening, the heart can actually experience what's going on without judgment, without fear, without denial, and really acceptance and allowance for whatever is being called in that moment. Yes?
0 point is actually the ultimate place to be standing with open feeling. And what that means is there's no reactivity to what is flowing through. It's more like you, instead of a place, it's more like a space. But words are so limiting, but 0 point is where everything is felt and nothing is rejected and nothing is, you have no preferences. It's just this beautiful experience. And when this experience becomes the life's breath, when it becomes the moment-to-moment experience, the heart is fully open, and every other heart gravitates to it. Love loves love. Heart loves heart. And everything begins to just be this unified field of accepting without preference, without judgment. I mean, it's really heaven.
There should be something here that I'd like to clarify, that doesn't mean that if you don't have a traumatic experience or a death, that you deny the expression of the heart, which is the emotions, feeling sadness, loss, grief. These are all the natural expressions of the heart, yes?
Absolutely. Okay, the heart says no to nothing. So any expression can move through the heart and be seen as beauty, even though from a previous perspective, it would have looked like something else. It would have looked like anger or
fear,
prejudice, or all these things. It's a very difficult thing to talk about. When you begin to live it, you feel it and know it. Can you help me here?
Yeah. Well, what I have experienced in my wonderful journey is that when there was a trauma or a very dramatic event that's taken place, the openness to allow it to come into the heart, not blocking it or trying to push it away, is the first thing. You have to receive this. And it's really just like the martial arts. You allow the energy to come through you. It may go down into the lower chakras, or it could go up. But the idea is that you don't hold on to any of it. You let it be an expression. If it triggers you, if you feel tears coming up, if you grieve, yes. And that will subside in whether it's a short or a longer period of time. The longer we hold on to the energy, the more that grieving takes place, the more the loss starts registering into the body, goes into the lower chakras, whether it's fear, survival, power, loss of power, or up here where you're trying to mentalize and try to figure out, okay, how can I get out of this situation? These are the tricks of what we see and watch and we have talked about as the matrix energy, or the mind control energy of this third dimension. So the heart is really the only way through to navigate to wherever we're headed. And wherever we're going in these next months is unknown territory. And yet it really isn't, because we know in our energy bodies, our genetics, our higher self, our light body, our spirit. We've been to these higher fields of light because we came in this way. It's this duality or this separate field, this separate dimensional area that we've been tricked into believing that has misinformed us about what the heart is or wasn't. So we're being given this full compensation, full 360 turnaround to say, you know, if you can come from here and allow this to go through here, you're home free. And that's really why we're doing these webinars.
It will feel, once you go through the transition phase of this shifting of the mind in the foreground to the heart being in the foreground, it will feel so natural.
And it continues.
Yes.
It's exponential. It doesn't drop down and it doesn't like go away. Oh yes, if something gets triggered, it'll be momentarily felt like it's gone, or you'll feel like you're in your separate self, or you'll feel disconnected. But as soon as you can realize that, oops, wait a minute, whatever that was, you know, let's go back to here. And as the more we continue to use our intention, if there's going to be any intention you're working on right now, not about getting a car or a job or house. Sure, that's a secondary thing. But most importantly is being centered here. This is our way through these changes and shifts. This is what we are going to continue talking about until the end of December 2012. And as we all prepare for these changes, as we all are being given these extraordinary gifts to activate, to deprogram, to release past, which is really a big challenge for most people, and to really come into this present moment. This is the time that the 0 point, the neutrality, the balance, and what everything that we're talking about here, what we'll be doing in our retreats and workshops, and also what we do in our sessions with people, is showing and getting people the experience and remembering how to do this. And so what we'd like to thank you with today and give you is that in our journeys, in our experiences, in our travels, we are moving in towards a reality that is the greatest gift I believe humanity is ever going to receive in the entire history of this planet, which is, again, our opening, our freedom, and our coming back to our true selves, our higher selves. So, was there anything you'd like to add to that?
This is an extraordinary time to be alive on this planet. We're so grateful that you've taken the time to listen to what we're offering. And please, give a little of your time and your energy to paying attention to your beautiful heart. It will reward you a millionfold. So this is our message for today. And if you have any questions, you are always welcome to be in touch with Lee or myself. Our contact information is on the website. We would love to see you at our retreat. We'll be working very experientially with the heart as a primary aspect of the retreats that we offer. So we hope to meet you sometime soon.
And with that, in the retreats, we're also going to take people through repatterning or deprogramming so that the heart can be fully experienced here in Mount Shasta, which is one of the most extraordinary places on the planet from our point of view and what we are literally going through ourselves. So yes, please join us. You can go to the Emerging New World website. You can also get information about our private sessions if you're getting tripped up right now, or if you'd like to go deeper into whatever it is that you're feeling or experiencing. We're happy to serve you the best we can. And thank you again for joining us today.
Bye-bye.